when I got out of college and I got the first job, which was a Big Four accounting firm, you know, I was sitting in a cubicle working 90 hours a week and always out of town. And I was running the numbers. I'm like, okay, I'm making $50K, but I'm working 90 hours a week. And I'm like, I'm making less than people make at McDonald's. Yeah. And it's way more stressful. So I was like, I got to figure out something else.
Cam Cathcart, welcome to the show again.
Dude, it was a blast being with you.
Dude, I love this show. Was phenomenal today. Josiah Smelser is our guest, and he is a rock star real estate investor. We talked about a ton of cool things today. What was your highlight for you?
Ooh, learning about how I am not investing wisely.
Not necessarily, but it was that was a great moment.
Yeah, I loved it.
We tore apart your portfolio and your cash flow.
Yes.
And we talked about how you could make $1 million a year and you're only making 160.
Yeah. So that, and then I learned a lot.
I made you $1 million today, just so you know.
Dude, I owe you. You did.
And it's going to make other people watching this show $1 million today.
It's definitely going to make me think.
Yes.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But it's going to make me think a lot.
It makes you think a lot.
And then I loved just talking about his career as an appraiser, because I think that's, you know, with us being single family people, or me being a single family person, just learning what appraisers are thinking and what's going through their head. That was awesome.
Well, I think you're all going to love this show, so we're going to get right into it today. I'm excited to bring you our episode with Josiah Smelser. Josiah Smelser, welcome to the podcast, man.
Man, I'm so pumped to be here.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right, so I know you as a real estate investor. I know you've done Burr. I know you do some luxury Airbnb. I want to talk about that today. I know you lived on the Appalachian Trail for a few months. I want to talk about that. I know you had some crazy out-of-country experiences. I know all that about you. I know you were a appraiser, a finance professor, broker, all that stuff. But before all of that, before super successful, good-looking Josiah, who was Josiah Smelser? Take us back.
Yeah, so... you know, I was just a kid like most kids growing up in the U.S., small town U.S. I grew up in Florence, Alabama.
Okay.
It's North Alabama. And, I'll kind of focus in on a really formative part of my growing up, which was my parents moving us to Tanzania for a year. So we moved to Tanzania, which was East Africa, when I was 12 years old. And it made such a huge impression on me because, you know, we had all the niceties of, you know, that we have in the U.S. that we take for granted. Yeah. Running water, air conditioning, you know, the area I grew up, low crime, paved streets, you know, all the things that we really take for granted. Low unemployment, you know. We moved to Tanzania. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, so they volunteered at this mission hospital. So they gave up a year of income. We moved over there, and we were an hour from the closest telephone.
Wow.
There was no air conditioning. Couldn't drink the water out of the tap. You know, we didn't have carpet. We slept under mosquito nets. No internet, of course. You know, no cable. Like I was a huge Braves fan when I was a kid, and really into baseball and baseball cards and all that. And I couldn't even get the scores on my team's games and stuff. Like I went from like watching baseball every night to like not knowing what happened for a year, you know? So, and then I became friends with the local kids, and, you know, they're living in one-room mud huts, and, you know, they're having to boil their water if there was water available. I mean, like some of them are having to go 30 minutes away and carry water in these buckets on their heads like you see on TV. So, you know, I got exposed to that from a young age, and that really reminded me and taught me like how blessed we are here. Mm-hmm. So when I came back, it's like I had this crazy experience come back, and it's like I'm right back in the same environment I was in before, but now I've got this new reality that, man, we're so blessed. We have so many amazing things like running water, clean water, air conditioning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, getting to watch our favorite teams on TV, going out to McDonald's. I mean, people think McDonald's is trash, but when you go without something like McDonald's for a year, I was like, when we got to the airport and there was a Burger King, I had like tears in my eyes. I was so happy to get some French fries and a cheeseburger. It's like little things you take for granted. And so, you know, that made a massive impression on me at a young age. And, you know, as I grew up, when I got older, I ended up going back to Tanzania. Spent some time in Rwanda, but that made a massive impression on me. The reason I bring that up to begin with, you know, that's probably one reason I became an entrepreneur is because I knew how blessed we are and the opportunities that we have here in the U.S.
Yeah. So I have to ask you this: when you were 12 years old, did you realize like, hey, this is a really great experience, or did you hate your parents when they hate's a strong word? Were you mad at your parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was always the kid that would, when I got home from school, I'd get on my bike and I'd take off.
Yeah.
Like I was out. And my parents laughed because at one point I went door to door and on the 3 streets and met everybody in every house. Knocked on the door, introduced myself, and this was in the 80s, when that's what we did. And I would take my bike out, ride trails, trade baseball cards, play Nintendo with my buddies, play outside. I wanted to be outside meeting people. So when my parents came up with this idea of going to Africa, I was excited about it because I was like, this is adventure. And that's you can kind of figure out who you are by what you did when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And I was in for the adventure. So yeah, I didn't want to be away from my friends, didn't want to miss sports and the baseball I was really into and stuff.
That's when they had like Greg Maddux probably and
Greg Maddux,
John Smoltz,
Glavin, Smoltz, Avery, all
Man.
that was like, it was killer. But yeah, so I had a blast. I mean, I learned Swahili. I learned the language. I got to be friends with all the kids. Like I would go down to the village, no white people around, and I would just hang out with the locals.
Cool.
Yeah, and we went on these hunting trips, and like it was just crazy. Like I remember I would finish school and I would head off in the mountains behind our house, and it was like backwoods, like deep underbrush, Africa, and I would just go back there with a couple kids, and we would just hike and explore. Yeah. And as my parents are like, there's lots of snakes and stuff. Like it's kind of a miracle I didn't get snake bit or something. But dude, it was so cool. And so when I got back, I had this amazing experience, and I was trying to tell my friends about it. It's like how do you tell somebody about that hasn't experienced that? So
yeah, it's almost like you aged probably multiple years in that year.
Yeah,
and you go back and all your friends are just immature 13-year-olds, and
yeah,
you're like, I'm 20 now.
Yeah. I think too, like, because you said this, like that's one of the reasons that you became an entrepreneur was because you realized like the opportunity here. And I think that's so interesting because we had a while back on the podcast, we had some first generation immigrants that were on the podcast, and all of them said the exact same thing, that the United States is the best country in the world for this. And then you hear that it's not, but it's typically from people like me that have grown up, that have grown up and have never seen the world or have never come from that, where it's like you didn't have the struggles. Going into
Yeah, when you have the opportunity that we have here, it's absurd. I mean, we got our problems in America, obviously.
It is absurd.
Yeah, but when it comes to defining your own path and building wealth and freedom. So let's move into that a little bit. Where did the idea of entrepreneurship come from? Did you start with real estate, or I know you're an appraiser, or you were an appraiser, are an appraiser? Are you
still an appraiser?
So what came first, and how'd you get? Walk us through that path of.
Yeah. So I was entrepreneurial from a young age. When it came to making money, there was the traditional, get hired by someone to do something hourly, and then there was the go be creative and figure out a way to sell something. And that's what I would always do because I could make a lot more money for my time.
Yeah.
And that to me is a very foundational part of entrepreneurship, is figuring out how to maximize the value of your time, right? If you can build something and sell it and make $1 million for a month of work versus sell your time at $10 an hour, it's obvious who's going to make more money, right? Mm-hmm. And so as a kid, I would, we had that like magazine sales competition at school where they I don't know how they're able to take that into schools and get kids to go sell their magazines and stuff. But I got those magazines and went and sold the crap out of those things and won those little awards and stuff. Yeah. And I had the bug. I was like, man, I can sell stuff, like, because I would get excited about it. I like meeting people, And so when I got older, it was like in college, my parents didn't give me money. It's like, if you want to go on a spring break trip, you got to figure out how to make the money. Well, it's like I could go work at Subway for $7 an hour, or I could sell something. And so I remember one time I was going from my dorm to class, and I noticed somebody had thrown a desk away. And so I just pulled the desk out of the garbage can and I put it in the back of my truck and I drove it around and asked people if they wanted to buy it. And they bought it. It's like $250, and I was like, that was my spring break money. So it was kind of like just recognizing a trait that a lot of us have. That's like, if you're willing to be creative and you're willing to go talk to people, get out of your comfort zone, you can actually make a lot more money for your time. So when I got out of college and I got the first job, which was a Big Four accounting firm, I was sitting in a cubicle working 90 hours a week and always out of town. And I was running the numbers. I'm like, okay, I'm making $50K, but I'm working 90 hours a week. And I'm like, I'm making less than people make at McDonald's. Yeah. And it's way more stressful. So I was like, I got to figure out something else. So I left that job and helped a friend start an appraisal business. And I was 21 years old and made way more money. I was getting to wear jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball hat, ride around with my friends in a truck, listen to music I like. And I got into real estate. So I got to go into houses all over Dallas-Fort Worth. And I got to figure out how to value homes. So that taught me that skill set where I could recognize value. And people always ask, like, should I go into appraisal? I'm like, it's not really the job of being an appraiser that's actually attractive. It's the skill set of learning how to recognize value. Because if you can recognize value in something, that deal AJ Osborne did where he bought that Kmart and converted that and made like $20 million or 25 million or something.
Yeah.
That is, he recognized value there that other people didn't see. And as an appraiser, you can learn how to do that. So that got me into the entrepreneurship game.
So how long have you been an appraiser?
I became an appraiser in 2005.
Okay.
So going on 20 years.